I always think of myself as a bit of a late starter in all things in my life. I didn't get married until my early 30s, and I didn't have a child until my late 30s. And I think that also goes for my career in the church. I didn't become a Christian until my early 30s. And almost immediately from being confirmed, I felt a call to something more. My name is the Reverend Janet Bunker. I'm a priest in the Church of England, and I'm a curate here in the parish of the Ascension in Cambridge. My role here is really as a training position. I'm here to learn more about the role of a priest before perhaps I go and run my own parish. Priest of England's job is almost undefinable because you're reacting to the needs of the people of the parish. We undertake marriages, baptisms and funerals for our parishioners. We take services obviously on a Sunday and midweek. We care for the pastoral needs of parishioners. We go and visit. We try and make links with the community. I think the role really develops in any way that we feel is important to the people of the parish. I'm actually sitting in one of 3 churches in the parish. This church is called St Giles. It has parts of an earlier church built on the site, I think goes back to 1092, but this church itself is very much a Victorian creation. It is a church which has what's called an Anglo-Catholic tradition. That is part of the Church of England's spectrum, if you like, which is very much concerned with liturgy, with ceremonial, with the sacraments. Attached to this church is a burial ground, which is further outside of Cambridge, but again was a burial ground created in Victorian times to cope with the expansion of the city of Cambridge. And often people come here looking for relatives who are buried there, and there are also many of the great and the good of Cambridge buried there. I think the most famous person buried there, and for whom many visitors are looking, is Ludwig Wittgenstein, who was a 20th century philosopher. But there are many masters and servants of the University of Cambridge who are buried there, and it's a fascinating place. Previous to my career in the church, I was a scientist by training. Then I moved into lecturing in higher education, and then I moved into advice work within the University Students' Union system. The difference with being an ordained minister is you do sometimes have to respond to need, which they don't always happen in a 9 to 5. And you do have to be there when people are in extreme distress and be there for them. I do try and keep some time with my family, which is important, I think, for their health and my own health. I'm very, very bad at doing hobbies. My husband bought me a watercolour set for Christmas, which I think he hoped I might use. I've used it once, but I'm very bad at making sure I do other things, really. And I think that's a perpetual struggle. I think in a parish such as this, which is extremely busy, extremely complex, I think you could be working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and still feel that there was more to do. But part of my role is also to call people to quiet worship with God, and to remind them that being busy isn't always a good way of being. And I try and model that too, although not always successfully. To be a priest, you have to be very aware of your own self. You have to be very aware of your own strengths and weaknesses, because obviously any sort of pressure on you and looking after people and pastoral pressures will make you examine yourself, and you don't want to, in a sense, load other people with your problems and your stresses. I think all people who go for ordained ministry and wear a collar struggle in the first few months with what that collar does to you. People who don't know me will say hello and smile at me, and it takes a little while to get used to that. The reverse, of course, is that sometimes people can say rather rude things to you. It's been over 10 years now since women were admitted to the priesthood in the Church of England. In this parish, the ministry team is a majority of women. And so the parish itself is very used to seeing women in leadership roles in worship and so on. So I've not come across any overt objection to me as a female priest. I mean, I think if you talk to anybody of faith, it isn't a distinction between one's ordinary life, if you like, and one's faith life. Ideally, the two should be integrated, whether you're an ordained person or not. A person of faith listens to God in word and prayer and tries to amend their life and behaviour in the light of that. So I think for me, being ordained has meant a greater integration of those two things, because I'm not just here on a Sunday. Some people do compartmentalise their life into things I do for church and things I do for ordinary life. For me, those two are so intimately interwoven that I couldn't extract one from the other, and I feel a great contentment in what I've been called to do now. So in a way, I feel that that's been what my life has been working up to, and despite its problems and despite its stresses, there is a great deal of satisfaction in feeling that you are doing what God has called you to do. And again, I would expand that to all people of faith, that they feel a great contentment in doing what they do because of their faith. I've always just been me, I think.